Welcome to another episode of the Cheerful Soundman podcast. It's a weekly show for event professionals to hear from other event professionals on the challenges and lessons of producing stellar events with a smile. I'm Eric Bunt, the owner of Bunt Backline Event Services, an event company here in Gainesville, Florida. Today we're talking to Keith Watson of Keith Watson Events, also in Gainesville, Florida. I wanted to have him on because of his many years as the premier event planner in our region, and his amazing work producing and planning high-end events. And we had an absolutely fantastic chat. Before we dive in, make sure you follow the show on on Instagram at the Cheerful Soundman. All right, let's dive into today's show. All right, well, welcome to the Cheerful Soundman podcast. We're starting back up here, so we'll call it episode 1.1. I don't know. Something
I like
that.
being first. That's good.
There you go. Well, yeah. Episode 1. This is a reboot.
That's fine. Okay.
Still the Cheerful Soundman podcast, but we'll call it episode 1 again. And welcome. I'm Eric Bunt, owner of Bunt Backline Event Services, and then also Cheerful Soundman, just in general production professional. We have a company here in Gainesville, Florida. But today I want to focus on you, our guest. This is Keith Watson Events. I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit.
Sure.
Who are you? What do you do?
Keith Watson of Keith Watson Events, as Eric just said. We are a special event design and production company based here in Gainesville, Florida. We're fortunate that we get to travel quite a bit, pre-COVID, I should say. And we plan to do a lot of traveling post-COVID with our productions. We have a 21,000 square foot warehouse here in town, and we're housed there with all of our own in-house linens and our own in-house florist and production team and shop and sales team and everything. So we're pretty much sort of a one-stop shop where you can come to produce an event. Doesn't mean that we actually do everything ourselves. We love partnering with people like you guys. Bunt Backline, I'll give you a little commercial, is one of our lead vendors that we work with a lot with, and for things that we don't have. So that's where we really consider ourselves the expert in the field to pull everything together for the client. And that's really what we do.
Yeah, I consider you guys, and no disrespect to any of the other folks in the marketplace,
Sure.
but I consider you guys kind of the market leader, at least here in Gainesville. And,
you.
I think you guys garner a lot of respect, and people know when they see your logo, your event, that, you're, I don't want this to come off wrong, but you're the old dog. You're the
I'll take the old dog as long as...
But the lead
okay
dog as well. You've
right.
kind of set the standard. You've been in
Sure.
town a long time.
Yeah.
And, I would put it that way, that I feel that you set the standard, for our events here. A lot of the university events, the galas, almost all of them tend to have your stamp on
all
them.
The good ones.
Well, there you go.
I'll say it for you.
And no disrespect to the other ones, because we work with a lot of them.
They're nice.
But no, you do excellent work, and you're known for that. So what I want to know is, how did you become Keith Watson, if you will? Where did you start with, and
My
what was your journey?
parents' name are John and Jesse Watson. That's how I became Keith Watson. I grew up in Alabama. Don't hold that against me. But no, on a cotton and poultry farm in Alabama, North Alabama, from a very athletic family, which I was not. And I was the artistic one and the baby of the family, and I take full advantage of that even to this day. And there's 5 of us, 5 siblings, and I'm the youngest. And all along, I knew that I wanted to do something in the arts. I knew what it was. So I began playing the saxophone when I was in 5th grade.
Nice.
I don't think they even told me by that lately.
I also played saxophone.
Well, there you
also starting in 5th grade.
You right
Wait,
there.
were you tenor, alto?
I played
Barry?
alto,
Okay.
and then baritone.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's natural transition.
Yeah,
I was
it
in the
was-
tenor camp, so we're a little bit opposing.
Treble clef. I didn't want to read bass clef.
Yeah.
And so did that and was in marching band. And in the back of my mind, I always knew I wanted to do something as a performer, as an actor. You just don't admit that when you're growing up on a cotton farm in Alabama,
Right.
that you want to be an actor. And so I ended up going to several schools. I was very fortunate with school in Tennessee for a while, and then transferred. I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Birmingham Southern in Birmingham, Alabama. And during a stint there, I also went and studied in England for a while, and then the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York. Moved to New York as an actor and a singer and a dancer, And I lovingly and jokingly and realistically say that was many years and many pounds ago. And so I did that for several years. Was successful, did some off-Broadway, some films, some TV, a lot of print work. I was actually a Vidal Sassoon hair model.
Nice.
For a while.
You still got it. You still got it.
I'm losing it back here. That's okay. We won't talk about that. But
it's still glorious back
This is
here.
my pandemic hair. That's
Right
how I
on.
look at it.
Mine's the same. It's running away from my face a little bit, but it's glorious back
Yes,
here. you know, so-
exactly. Met my beautiful wife in New York. She was an opera singer at the time, and I was an actor, and we got married there. And my father, being the very pragmatic and realistic businessman and farmer, said, "Son, it's time to get a real job. You've got a wife now. You need to give the acting thing up." And basically, I listened to him, and wisely so, I began working for a catering company. At that time in New York City, there was no such thing as an event company back then. It was a catering, and you had a florist. And several people did one thing, but did that. And then I was fortunate to be hired by Callaway Gardens. It's in Georgia. It's in Pine Mountain, Georgia. It's about 75 miles south of Atlanta. They have 8 golf courses there, and I was the food and beverage director there. Oversaw about a $14 million operation there of their 7 restaurants, all their catering, all their events. And was one of the original designers of their Christmas display because I'd always loved Christmas.
That's what they're known for, isn't it?
Yes,
Don't they do a
Fantasy and
giant?
Lights.
That's
Yep.
where I knew.
Yep. That started in 1995, I think it is, 96, something like that. I'm dating myself. From there, I was hired by to come back to New York City, and I was the director of food and beverage and events for the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Guggenheim Museum, and the Cloisters were my 3 museums that reported to me.
Oh, wow.
And I did all that for a while, and then worked for a company called Swiss Reinsurance, doing all their events and everything. Then I went to work for a 6,000 member congregation in New York City as their director of special events, and did all their conferences, all their rental agreements, everything like that, while starting my own company on the side.
In New York.
In New York. So we founded Keith Watson Productions in 2002 in New York. We were there during 9/11, the whole thing. We decided to stay there a little bit longer. And by that time, our son was in high school and my daughter was in middle school. We said, it's time to get out of New York. And so again, it's a long story, but we chose Gainesville, Florida for many reasons. My wife, having gone to New England Conservatory in opera and then Columbia University, she's smart. I don't know why she married me. But anyway, that's where she also had a very good friend who was teaching here at the university in music. And so we were looking for places to move. They said, hey, move to Gainesville. And I literally said, I've never heard of it. I mean, I just didn't know.
Never heard of it. It was like with the
Why
New
should I
York
know that?
accent.
I've never been there before. you know?
Never heard of it.
Exactly. So we came down and fell in love with Gainesville. Literally, we were here for 3 days, looked at 13 houses, bought one on the 3rd day, and moved 2 weeks later and haven't looked back.
So it was really like, hey, we kind of know somebody there, like pin on the map.
Right.
Let's
Well,
move
and
it.
we were fortunate when we decided to move. I met with all of my clients in New York, and I said, "Look, I'm moving to Florida, but I want to retain my relationship with you." And they said, "Look, we don't care where you live as long as you don't charge us anymore." And I said, I won't. And so we don't. We still have those clients today. We're very fortunate. We have a team in New York that works for Things with Wellness up there, and then I fly back and forth when I need to. So it worked out really well. So we've been here since 2004. And I think mostly back then it was mostly florists and catering companies, and that's fine. But then as we have progressed over the years with our industry in general, we have become there are more special event companies, and that's great. We love having people around doing that.
Yeah, I've noticed there's been increased importance put on the planner role. Like it's shifted more and more that way over the last few years, where it's even increased.
And thank you so much for bringing that up here, because what we try to tell folks when they contact us, they'll often say, "Well, I want to do this myself. I just want to hire you to do, the decor, the flowers." And we say we can do that, but let's help you talk. Let me talk you through what you're going to be doing if you're doing it yourself, because it's going to be very stressful for you. Mm-hmm. Let us take that stress off you. You're still a part of it. We don't make decisions without you, but we help you know what decisions you need to make.
Yeah.
We narrow your options down based on what you want. Mm-hmm. That's why we ask you for your Pinterest board, we often call them Pinterosities, but there's a Pinterest board, and that's important to us because we look at that Pinterest board and say, well, what about this photograph really appeals to you? Is it the color? Is it the texture? Is it the location? What is it? Then we narrow it down to help the folks learn really what they need to look and talk about. So
you get a feel for their personality a little bit, or their design aesthetic.
Right,
and,
exactly.
Yeah, those type of things.
And we have that time to really interview each other, and we make that very clear. We say, we want to be sure that we can make you happy, and we want to make sure that you're a client we want to work with. Yeah. I mean, that we've got to be real upfront about that because as we are very particular about our brand. We want to protect our brand and be sure that when you say you're getting a Keith Watson event or a Keith Watson wedding or Keith Watson florals, it is the creme de la creme. It is top notch because that's what we build our business on and make sure that, our mantra is you're only as good as your last event.
Yeah.
And so very true. If you screw one up, that's a problem. And we don't. We just make sure we don't.
It's very true. Actually, so this is one of my just general questions that I always ask folks. So since you said that, I do want to know, I always love to get a good juicy story of what is your go-to or your best like production fail or disaster, if you will. It doesn't have to, you don't have to, you can plead the fifth a little bit on it, but like something that just went terribly and then how you dealt with it is kind of how I generally do that.
I have no failures.
No failures at all. Keith Watson events.
We
Perfection.
Never let them see you sweat. If you would never know if we failed. I'm seriously. This is going to sound really egotistical to me, but I'm trying to think of something. There was a situation when always be careful, and from our standpoint, we want to be sure that any caterer we're working with, like any vendor we work with, is top notch. And if we had an opportunity to work with a really pretty high profile client here in town who was doing, and I want to be careful because I don't want to give too much away, but
yeah, we don't want to dime anybody out here.
Was doing an event and the caterer was an hour and a half late arriving on site. Ooh. And food was 2 hours late going on the buffet. And it was one of those moments you can't capture back. You can't get it back because it wasn't a repeat event. It was like a one-time event for a one-time celebration. Again, I'm not going to say too much. Yeah. And that person, that caterer, we don't use them anymore. And we were very kind and very direct. But we had done all of our homework ahead of time, saying this is when you need to arrive. This is what needs to happen. And they just didn't follow through. And then when they were on site, refused to acknowledge what had happened until finally I literally said, "You're going to come out and apologize," and they did. So it worked out. But we just want to be really careful who we work with, and that sort of thing. So that was pretty bad because I felt like it really reflected poorly on my company. Yeah. Even though the client had chosen that caterer, not us, but I was excited to work with that person. Mm-hmm. So we want to be very careful. We try to vet everybody that we're coming in, and we'll have situations where we are hired to come to another town to do an event, right. And the client may have already said, "Well, I want XYZ person to work with you on food or whatever," and we go, "Okay," but we'll call and we try to find out everything about that person before we go in to be sure that we feel good about that, and that if there's a reason to be concerned, we'll call the client and say, "Just so you know, we vetted this person. This is what we're seeing. We think we need to address this." Did that answer your question?
No, that's what I was looking for. Okay. Yeah. One of my worst ones ever actually was a super high-end wedding where there was something wrong with the generator and was out on the beach with a tent. And I will never forget that one. It was just popping lights left and right. Like lights were literally exploding. And like the bride's coming, the bride's coming. We're like, well, we got half the lights. I don't know what else to do other than unplug these so they don't explode while she's sitting there. Yeah. And it all turned out it was a faulty generator basically, but which we didn't provide. But either way, even if we did provide it, generator stuff happens, in the industry. So, that was a mess. And then I ended up buying overpriced steaks afterwards to make up for it with the guys. And it was, I remember that one too because I lost a lot of money that day.
Well, you triggered a thought. I did an event in New York. This was in the year 2002, I think it was 3, and it was a pretty very high end event. We had singers from Metropolitan Opera performing. We had Broadway dancers. We had just a big deal, and we had tented an area outside on a patio of the main building where we were doing the event. So it was 1,000 people so we could flow in between. We're seating 500 people inside, 500 people in the tent, and it was December, and in New York City, we're actually right outside New York City in a suburb, and so we brought in the tent company and the lighting company, and we specifically hired 2 generators. I wanted a regular generator and a backup, just in case something happened, because it was 14 degrees outside. I need to be sure I had heat and lights in this tent. When the company we hired them, we said, I want to hire a full-time person to stand by the generator the entire night. He needs to be warm, or she, whomever it's going to be, but I don't want them to leave that generator, because if one goes off, I want to push the button, the next one comes on immediately while they're working on the first one. So I cannot have any outage at all, because my guests will freeze. Sure enough, 10 minutes into the dinner, boom, all the lights go off in the tent. So I'm thinking, okay, it's going to come back on immediately. So I'm with a little miniature flashlight running through the tent to get to the backside, and there's a staircase that went down to where the generators were. I didn't remember that the stairs were frozen over. And so I hit the stairs, and I literally hit my butt and slide down about 20 stairs. Boom, 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 boom. Something out of a movie. And I look over the generator, and there's the guy who I had hired to be there with his back to the tent, smoking a cigarette, looking at the moon.
Just enjoying his evening.
Just enjoying his evening. And I had a few choice words that night that I had to confess later to our preacher. And, what are you doing? Oh, push the button, it came back on. But it's one of those moments where you want to be able to surround yourself with people you can rely on.
Yep.
And companies you can rely on. Vendors you know are going to have your back, just like you have their back.
Yeah.
So you triggered a thought for me, yeah. That could have been, it was a disaster as far as I was concerned, because it was a lag there. It was probably about a minute and a half with no power. But that was
I'm sure you were forgiven, and I'm sure they,
the client was like,
the generator, oh my gosh, well, thanks for handling that so quickly.
And thanks for having a second one, because they didn't want to pay. I convinced them, I said, in this one, you really need to have 2 generators for this one because of the nature of the event. So,
and with the temperatures as well. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
I noticed you still do that. We did worked with you on the Santa Fe groundbreaking downtown last year, and you guys, there were 2 generators there. You made sure there were 2 generators there, so you definitely learned that one.
Yes.
Speaking of learning, what's one thing, what would you say is something that you wish when you started out and, like, let's say shifted to the, the event side of things versus the performing side of things?
Sure.
What's something you wish you would have, like, known going into it, or understood earlier? I
wish that I could draw, that I was a visual artist, because I'm not. I can do stick figures pretty good.
Yeah.
But that's one of my, I love finding inspirational photos, and I go to the theater and I go to the museums and I get inspired, but for me to try to translate that onto paper is difficult for me. So that's one of my things that I think I should put on my bucket list one day, to take some art classes. Other than that, I look back and think, if I had known now, if I'd known then what I know now, what would I have done differently? I think there's not much I would have done, because I've been very, very blessed. Everything the way I look at life, everything that I do or I experience builds on what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And I need to learn from that. Yes, I've made mistakes. We all make mistakes. And, there are people that I've hired that for whatever reason I thought was going to be a great fit for the company that wasn't. But I learned from that. I learned how to manage that person or those people, how to not let it affect our brand, or how, if it did affect our brand, what I could do to change that. And so that's one thing that I would definitely have changed, and maybe a little bit more in human resources in that area. Yeah.
Yeah, mine is similar. Like, I think that's the thing. I'm probably halfway between beginning a career and where you're at, and that's the thing that I'm currently working on most. Actually, is team building, human resources, those type of things. Because it's one of those things, like, you can be an entrepreneur, you can be, have just basic business sense, work really hard to make sure your productions are great, all those things. But it's very hard to just intuitively, unless you're just extremely empathetic, like that type of person, it's very hard to manage a group of people and have them communicate your expectations clearly,
Right.
but then also be empathetic to the fact that it's my business, not theirs.
Right.
And that balance of like trying to draw as much out of them as possible for their sake and ours, but then also, respecting their lives and wishing the best for them in other ventures and all those things.
Sure.
And so that's kind of where I'm at. And that's, I don't know that you just like, I think I love that question because I love what it brings out, but it also, in a lot of ways, it makes me realize like I have no regrets about any of the things because the failures, the difficulties, those things are the things that I learned the most from.
Sure.
And, have helped shape who we are and are making us better in a lot of ways.
I think one of the hardest things, at least for me, and I don't know how this relates to you, but there's the balance when you own a company, at least in our industry from the decor side, is the design and versus the business side. Mm-hmm. And there oftentimes do not match. The design, I have a champagne taste, but unfortunately, usually the client has a beer budget, and there's nothing wrong with beer. There's some great high-end beers, but it's hard sometimes to get those. And so I think another regret, if you will, early on, I wish I had brought someone on earlier in the business that had more of a black and white accounting standpoint, as opposed to because I own the company, I have people say, "Oh yeah, sure, we can do that," but they are seeing what the results were from a profit standpoint. Yeah. And there comes a time, and you know this, that with a company that you can't always, I don't always look at the bottom line. I want to look at what the experience is going to be for my client, and know, yes, we are a for-profit company. We have this conversation with a lot of our clients who come to us who are nonprofit, and we have we love children, we love the arts, we want to participate in everything we can for them, but we always have that conversation that, okay, you're not for profit, we are for profit. We've got to meet somewhere in the middle here to make this work for both of us. Yeah.
I want to shift to, speaking of pandemic nonprofitness. Sure. That was actually supposed to be the topic of the show.
Oh, okay.
So that's my fault, not yours. You don't have to act like it was your fault.
Go with it.
So how's the last year been, Keith? How's it been treating you?
It sucked a big one. Can I say that?
Yes. You can say whatever you want.
Okay.
We'll put the little E by the thing. It's
Thank
fine.
Thank you. I sat at my desk, Eric, probably as you did too. I think it was March 7th or 8th. I can't remember what date it was.
March 12th,
okay.
2020.
And just watched the phone ring.
Yep.
I mean, and literally, had it not been pandemic, I would have been thrilled the phone was ringing that much in one day. But sit there, we were on books, on record, and as far as contracts were concerned, we were on a scale to do the absolute best in the history of our company last year.
Yeah, we were as well.
And
big time.
It hit us hard. We we're very fortunate. I have an amazing team. I can't say enough about that. I'm only as good as the people I surround myself with. So I look at it, and they all know more about what they do than I do, and I just sort of try to keep everybody happy and keep them going. And we're very, very fortunate to have a general manager, David Apple, and if you work with David, and Becky Bumgarner, who's our vice president of operations. And the two of them really helped me look at the company and figure out, okay, what are we going to need to do based on what's going on? And one of the hardest days of my life was when I had to furlough 21 employees. And we had to do it pretty quickly because, I mean, it was just, the money was just, it was.
That rug was pulled fast.
It was. And, yes, we had deposits on most everything. However, those deposits we need to refund because we have it in our contract. If you cancel within a certain amount of days, 6 months in advance, like that, you can get a full refund. And most of these were 6 months in advance. Yeah. And even some of the other ones were repeat clients. We wanted to work with them, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, you're trying not to burn people either.
No, not at all.
Because it's not their fault either. No. They're not just being flaky.
Right.
You're talking about the world shutdown.
Exactly. So we did furlough everybody, and it was very, very hard, emotionally and physically, just exhausting. So we did that, and then we were very fortunate and grateful to get the PPP loan. So we were able to bring everybody back. And I'm maybe going into too many details here, but then at the very beginning, when you got the PPP, you were told you had to use it within an 8-week period.
Oh, did you burn through yours too?
Oh, yes, like that.
Yeah, because after week 6, so same exact. we're
Yeah.
same exact thing.
And then it's like,
week 6, they were like, no, you can use it for 24 weeks.
Exactly.
I'm like, but I've already burned
Exactly.
3/4 of it or whatever. Like, what do you mean I can use it for 6 weeks?
because we wanted to keep people employed, but I had to come back again. And when we brought them on at the beginning of the 8 weeks, I said, guys, I'm going to have you here for 8 weeks, so please don't. You're getting all your full pay, but don't spend it. Save it,
Yeah.
because in 8 weeks, unless something changes, I'm going to have to lay you off again. So we did, but we had no events to do, so we were able to do inventory and paint doors and things that we had not been able to do, and do some training. We did a lot of training with our staff, which is great to do that. But we had 2 events that were very small from March till the end of August last year, and that was a killer for us.
Wow.
But thank God for the first quarter. We had an amazing first quarter, and for the fourth quarter, we do one of the things that I didn't mention earlier. We do a lot of Christmas decorating, and we're very fortunate to that. And so we were fortunate that we do a lot of private homes during the holidays, and a lot of corporate, and we do town of Tioga, places like that, but a lot of corporate business as well. So that really, we were able to bring our entire staff back. Those who wanted, some didn't want to come back because of various reasons. So those who wanted to come back, we brought them back mid-October and worked until the middle of January. So
That's good.
yeah, so now we're sort of on a furlough again situation.
Gotcha. Are you guys starting to see some shift back to?
We're getting a lot of people, smaller events, but they're still coming in, and a lot of last minute events. People are deciding at the last minute, okay, I want to do something in 3 weeks, and we'll do it. We'll make it happen for them.
Gotcha.
So it's good.
Yeah, and we're in the March 23rd today. We're recording, so
Yeah.
So first quarter was essentially burned again for you.
Well, yes, we do use the first 2 to 3 weeks of January to take down all the Christmas we put up.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's some revenue there. But then February and March has not been very much.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, we're holding on. We're grateful, and going to keep pressing forward. And again, fall is beginning to book, and that's always good. As long as we can get people to keep wearing their masks. Yes, I am a mask wearer, and I admit it, and I want people to do that. We're socially distanced, so we're not doing it here. And get vaccinated. I think we're going to be fine.
What do you think might be a common myth about production, or I would even put it as owning your business? Let's shift it that way, actually.
Sure.
Owning an event planning or production business.
That it's just all fun and games. People go, oh, don't you just have so much fun? It's just so, and it is. I absolutely love what I do. However, the vast majority of people do not realize the amount of work it takes in going in to do what we do collectively as a team. That how long it really takes to set up a room full of pipe and drape and linens and flowers and china glass and silver or runners or whatever you're doing. It's a lot. And then we also write shows for clients. We have one we're doing coming up in May where we bring in an actor from New York and writing a whole show around his work and producing it. And sometimes, and not this particular client, but in general, a lot of times folks don't understand why you have to pay those people for what they do or amount that you need to pay folks to do things. And you go, well, let's break it down per hour. How long did it take a choreographer to design and choreograph a number? And then how long did it take to rehearse those dancers per hour? You're looking at, and then they're coming into the performance. They may be doing one dance number in a 2-hour segment, but they've taken their entire day to be there or the entire night. It's not just those.
They can't go work another gig.
Exactly. And so helping people understand that is sometimes difficult. The higher end clients get it, but some of the people who are just new to it, it's a matter of educating them. And we say, this is why it costs what it costs. And if you are not comfortable paying that, we understand that we're not the company for you, or you need to find an alternate type of entertainment or decor, and we're okay with that. And we have folks that come to us that are they want to do it themselves, and that's great. That's fine. There's people who can do that, and we actually open a segment of our company for those folks. It's on our website. It's a do-it-yourself. On our website, you can go there and rent things from us that are not branded specifically for us. So that if you wanted,
like pipe and drape,
or a tablecloth or something like that, and it helps the do-it-yourself person because our labor is minimal. Yes, we are taking, and you're coming to our loading dock, picking up. You're taking it, you're setting up, you're bringing it back. So we give a discount for that, and it's much cheaper to do it that way.
Gotcha.
But if you want us to do it and make sure it's done on time, and you don't have to worry about it, then there's labor involved. It costs more.
If you had today, if I were to just hand you, go over there in my safe and get you $20,000 for your company, what would you spend it on?
A new box truck.
Yeah. Ragged out.
One of them is.
That was a quick answer. It's funny because I had to sit there and think about it. I'm like, there's so many things I would spend it on. It's like you were like box truck instantly.
We have two. One is challenged right now,
Yeah.
and so the question now is, do we repair it or we just junk it? Because we often, again, we're very fortunate that we're busy enough that we'll need a van, 2 box trucks, and we'll rent 2 or 3 other trucks, depending on how big the events or if there's multiple events. And so that would be my first thing right there.
Right on.
Without a question. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, there was zero hesitation there.
Right.
All right. Off topic, but if you weren't doing production right now, which I know you were talking about, retirement's not necessarily too far in the future.
Right.
But if you weren't doing production, what would you be doing right now?
Performing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would go back. Again, I was very fortunate, very blessed. I was in, Actors Equity and SAG and AFTRA and all that stuff, and did a lot of work. And I don't regret giving it up at all, because I think had I continued doing that, it'd been very difficult to have the wife and 2 amazing children we have, and just sustain life in New York City. But I would probably, we have a summer home, a great, up in upstate New York, so we do spend summers there. And our daughter lives in Manhattan. Our son lives in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And so we get to see them when we're up there in the summer, which is great. And they both have been sort of twisting my arm that as that retirement, picture starts coming closer to relocate to the north. But I don't know that we're going to do that anytime soon. Most
people do the opposite.
Yes. Yeah.
They run away from the cold weather, northernness to Florida.
Well, both of their careers are, our daughter is a nurse educator at Mount Sinai. They're in Manhattan, and her husband is a film director and does really, really well. And our son is a cannabis farmer, does really well in Lancaster, and his girlfriend's there. So they're going to be there for a while. And we hope for grandchildren. I'll say that because they're going to see this podcast sometimes.
Wink, wink.
Yes, we say it often. And so to be closer to family, my family's in Alabama, but they're much older and we don't see them as often. Yeah. And, we get together once or twice a year if we can. Haven't seen them in a year and a half now because of COVID. So that's a little different, to be close to our children. That's what I do. And, I want to go back on the stage. I love it. It's fun. And who knows when that'll happen. The old farts who are out, they stop performing when they're a certain age, but maybe I'll go back and start doing that. You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see why you couldn't.
Yeah, sure. I'd be glad to.
Young and energetic.
Yeah. From your mouth to God's ears, we say in New York.
There you go. All right, Gainesville. Well, it doesn't have to be Gainesville, but it'd be nice if it was. But what is a restaurant that you love and would want people to know about, or
Well, you're putting me on the spot on that one because I have so many friends.
And no disrespect to any of the restaurateurs. If he doesn't choose you, I put you on the spot.
Can I do more than one?
Sure, go for it. It's your show.
So my absolute favorite, and we go there often, is Ember's Wood Grill. We had the most amazing wine tasting and pairing dinner there last week, and we work a lot with Embers as caterers. I think they're amazing. I love Blue Water Bay out of Melrose. I just went there for lunch yesterday, and they do amazing food. And Byron's a great guy. I love pad thai from Taste, and I go and eat with Hung's food over there.
Mine's pad thai from Chopsticks on South 13.
Okay,
not the one that was the bistro.
Yep,
South 13.
Yep, exactly. Overlooking the lake.
Pad thai.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
You'll catch an alligator swim by every once in a while.
And then, we were fortunate. I was asked to come over to do a tasting and the critique of the new Spurrier restaurant. I mean, it's going to be amazing in Celebration Point when they open there.
Like a steakhouse type of place? Or
it is not a sports bar. I want to be sure, because I told Freddie Wiebe is one of the owners and the general manager there and partner. And when you think Spurrier, you automatically think sports bar.
Right.
And it's really not. I mean, the food it's more high end than that. They've got some great private dining room there. They have a museum in there that where all of
So
this
it's more
is.
like Don Shula's
Yes, but
steakhouse or
but-
whatever, yeah.
I would think at least the tasting I had was better.
Okay.
It really, really was. So that was good. Yeah. So those are some of my go-tos. And then, of course, for pizza, I go to Dean Cacciatore and Hale Plantation. Dean's amazing food over there, amazing pizza, and he's a great caterer. Also, we work with. But those are
Getting
some
really
of my-
hungry now. I shouldn't have. We're filming. I haven't eaten.
And then my wife is the best cook of all. So there's that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Yes.
So Keith, where can people follow you, connect with you, find you?
Sure. So our website is keithwatsonevents.com. Pretty easy to go there.
Keith with a K.
Yes, KeithWatson. We're on Facebook as Keith Watson Events. We're on Instagram, the Keith Watson or Keith Watson Events, because I cross-reference both of those.
Okay.
And I'm on Twitter. I don't really do much there, but Keith Watson 1 on Twitter.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to have you on as guest number one.
Thank you. And I'm honored to
Point
be number
something.
one here. Yes, absolutely. And
So,
looking forward to getting this out and putting it on our social media so people can listen to it, stuff
absolutely.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks for being on, and thanks for your insights. And
Sure.
personally, I'm very grateful for getting to work with you on
you.
many events, and
Same here.
very grateful. I think it's been a couple years now that we came together on some event, and then we've been a lot of events since then, other than this terrible COVID era. Well, thanks for coming by.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, that was Cheerful Soundman episode 1 point something.
Big thank you to Keith Watson for being our guest on the show today. It was wonderful to have you here, and we had a great chat about pandemic production. Remember to check out keithwatsonevents.com. If you liked the show today, it would be awesome if you could subscribe and leave a review on Apple or Spotify podcasts. That would make our day. And follow us on Instagram at The Cheerful Soundman. Either way, thank you for listening, and we really hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully you got something out of it too. Can't wait until we get to share the next episode, which will drop next Tuesday, so stay tuned. And until then, don't suck, don't be a jerk.